Maybe I could start off by asking, in your view, what is at stake in the election for the party deputy presidency of PKR this time around? What is at stake?
I think the stake is a lot lower than all the previous elections because the first objective of this election has been achieved, which is to ensure that Anwar Ibrahim is the president. And the decision for the party members is to find someone who fit Datuk Sri and complement him the most. You have Datuk Sri Azmin, who is a senior cabinet minister. That's one campaign trajectory, which is you use the strength of the government track record and your government's position to strengthen the party further and to bring it to the new level. Or you have a different trajectory, which is people like me have always been very active on the ground, very fast on the ground. We have always campaigned through the grassroots. So if the party decides that we want to support Datuk Sri's leadership by having a much wider grassroots network, then the party members would decide to go with me.
Some who favour your opponent claim that it's important to support Datuk Sri Azmin in order to maintain continuity.
I don't think there is any question about Datuk Sri Azmin's position in the cabinet. It is a prerogative of the Prime Minister, and I think Tun Mahathir has made it very clear that he wants Azmin to focus on the economy. I have also made it very clear that in any event, whether I win, whether I lose, whatever happens, I would like to have 2 years out of any public positions. I don't think the public understands the toll it takes to a young family like mine, having campaigned for the last 10 years non-stop. I also asked the 2 years to be out of any official positions because I feel if we were to go into the next general election stronger than before, we need to use these 2 years to really strengthen our grassroots network. Our machinery is not as good as UMNO's or PAS. Our machinery has a lot to back up in order to make sure that we pose a serious defense of our government in the next general election.
Okay. There's been a huge jump in the number of members for PKR since GE14. Reportedly now there's more than 800.
Yeah, it's closer to 900,000. We had to stop the membership because it's going a bit crazy. Yeah.
Who are these new members? Where are they mostly from? Which states are they from? And do you think they are on board with you and your team and the vision that you have presented for the party election?
I think you put it right on the spot when you say that they are the unknowns. Of course, the largest numbers of new members come from Selangor and the states which we recently won, which includes Negeri Sembilan, Johor. We also saw huge increase in Sabah. As of now, I don't think anyone can tell how or why, how they will vote.
Now, is there a risk, do you think, that those in PKR or maybe even in other parties in Pakatan who may be unhappy for whatever reasons with the process in which the Port Dickson was chosen, is there a risk that they would work against the campaign? Is there a risk that they may boycott?
It remains to be seen. It's just that one thing that I learned from the last 5-6 years campaigning is that don't assume anything. I told my team all these years that there's this one quotation by American professor in God we trust, all others must bring data. Don't tell me you know what people think on the ground. So as we speak, we are testing with the voters in Port Dickson. We will formulate the campaign strategy, how to position Anwar, how to create the assignments, how to get more voters to come out based on our findings from Port Dickson's voters, which we should be able to get by end of next week. So it's quite difficult to say now. It's just that I think the risk for boycott, despite some comments here and there, is actually quite minimal in Port Dickson, primarily because it's a state which is very favourable to Datuk Seri Anwar and my own candidacy as the Deputy President.
You know, on Tuesday, there was a statement by Haniza Talha. She said that the PKR Deputy President's post cannot determine whether Anwar Ibrahim becomes the next PM. This is because the succession plan has already been agreed by the four Pakatan parties. Now, your view and response to this?
What had happened in the last 4 years was that PKR has always been torn between two different school of thoughts. For every time we were facing a big issue, a big strategic decision, it has always been torn by one direction on the one hand and the other direction. That had happened during the formation of Pakatan Harapan. We were responsible for launching Pakatan Harapan. Datuk Seri Azmin was against it because he felt that a union with PAS would have ensured longevity of PKR and we wouldn't have survived without Malay votes. Likewise, when we decided to bring in Tun Mahathir and Bersatu and agreed to the consensus that he became the 7th Prime Minister, you know, people like Haniza, Zuraida, Azmin were against it on the basis that, you know, he should be younger Prime Minister and so on and so forth, you know. And now that we are in Putrajaya, there's a significant number of party members who feel that now that we have Anwar Ibrahim as a Prime Minister, as a President of the party and a Prime Minister in waiting, you know, we need a solid team that moves together the party in one direction without continuous splitting. It's simplistic for Haniza to say that the Deputy Prime Minister, the Deputy President does not decide whether or not Anwar Ibrahim become Prime Minister, but the Deputy President decides whether the party remains whole in our support for Anwar Ibrahim to become the Prime Minister.
There's the question of, at that point, when Anwar becomes PM, who will be the DPM? I understand that, you know, Pakatan has not gone that far yet.
My view is, and this might be controversial, I think when Datuk Seri Anwar becomes the Prime Minister, I think the switch would happen, that the most senior person to take over as Deputy Prime Minister would be Tan Sri Muhyiddin from Bersatu, because he would complement Datuk Seri Anwar. They were more or less the same generation. Both of them would have had the longest experience in government before, and it would also set the balance within Pakatan, because although PKR has the highest number of seats, you know, by far compared to Bersatu or Amanah, if you have the Prime Minister from PKR and Deputy Prime Minister also from PKR, it might set a different connotation and goes back to the tradition of UMNO. I've worked very closely with Tun Mahathir and Tan Sri Muhyiddin throughout the formation of Pakatan. Tun Mahathir is already 7th Prime Minister, and when the position of the parties is switched, PKR takes a premiership, and then it's only right for the time being that Tan Sri Muhyiddin, not only by virtue that he's a president of Bersatu, but also given his seniority and long experience in government and cool-headedness, because I've seen that cool-headedness during the critical time especially to negotiate the seat allocation.
What have been some of the key lessons that you have learned from this 20-year involvement, you know, in Reformasi, the ups and downs, the struggles of it?
Well, the most important thing that I've picked up along the way since student days, since the days in London, because I started out doing the Reformasi websites for the party from a London basement, and I started out with Raja Petra, doing Free Anwar campaign. He shouted here, and I knocked doors in the UK and so on. All those years, actually, the most important lesson that I feel contributed to what I am today, you know, the kind of hard-nosed, if I decide is A and I say A, people say that whether you're arrogant or whether it's because after 20 years I learned this, you know.
Some people say that you are stubborn, but
Yeah, I am stubborn.
you're explaining
I'm
why.
universally known to be among the most stubborn persons. And Anwar always make that joke. It's like, you know, this is the most stubborn guy, you know. The reason being is this, because I learned that if you join politics because you want to go armed, then you have to bend your ways, because you have to get in the good books of people. I joined Reformasi, not even politics, I joined Reformasi not because of a career or position in life or anything. I joined because I felt I'm compelled to do something to correct what I feel is wrong. You know, certain things that you do will definitely annoy people because it rocks the boat, but because you know your heart is at the right place and your rewards and your satisfaction is always with God and your conscience, then I think you will be able to make a difference. You don't expect rewards, you don't expect, you know, a pat on the back, so long as you understand that it is important to do that for your conscience. Whatever people say, whatever people do, you know, I mean, it's a small matter. That's why it's not too big an issue whether I win or I lose in this party election, because the party members know whatever happens, I will still be running on the ground doing stuff, you know, and that provides some kind of stability and a sense of purpose to what we want to do next.
With that, thank you very much.
Okay, very
It's been
good.
very enlightening to me.
Thank you.